We've gone over this in a podcast before, but this time we're going to go over a little bit more in depth. And this is game animations. We're specifically going to be talking about animations in games. This is applied to both 2D and 3D. However, for those of you who are doing 3D games, we're going to go into a nice little trick that really can help with your animations.
Yeah.
The first thing we want to...
Because we're all about the tips and tricks and making things easier for you devs.
Thank you. I need to remember to slow down a little bit. Yeah. All right. So the first thing we're going to go is... Let me look down at the screen here. It's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. The screen for the contents down here. We're going to go over the game animation principles yet again. We've talked about them before. And these are principles of animation that you yourself really need to understand, regardless of whether or not you are doing something in 3D or 2D. And these principles are vitally important. There they are. Go ahead, honey.
Yeah, I was about to say the reason they're so important is because these concepts are a backbone to game design.
Yes. Again, we've gone over these in our podcast, but in order for us to have the conversation for you guys, we need to have these again. We need to go over these again.
Okay.
Because the whole goal of this workshop right now is for you specifically to think about your action events, your sequences for your powers, your character walking, its walk cycle, everything. All of that. Very, very important.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead. I'm just going to pull each one. Okay.
Let's just toss each one out there.
So we're not going to go in the order that's down listed up here. Instead, we're going to go over the first thing that we think is really important for you making an animation in a battle system of any kind. Again, 2D, 3D. It's called anticipation. It's your setup for your animation sequence. And the reason that we're stressing how important this is because think of it like, look at those old RPG Maker games we look at, where the character's just standing there. Final Fantasy VI did this. They stand there and then whack, whack. There's no movement. They're in their idle, and they step forward and go whack, whack. There's no anticipation. There's no prep. None of that. None of it. You need to have that. You need to have those first few frames, whether it be 2D or 3D, of your character getting ready to attack. And
some kind of cue.
Like maybe they put their sword back, or they raise their fists up. Something. So when you're designing your character animation, give yourself a little bit of lead-in time.
Yeah, Jace. Absolutely.
Agreed. But the lead-in time is important. Animate it.
Yeah.
Animate it. It's cute that Rex says, remember most of dopamine releases with anticipation, not the actual event.
Yes.
Yes. And although that is a cute comment, it is also a very true comment that when your character rears back to attack, sometimes that creates more of a oh yes moment than when they actually attack. Someone mentioned Azor's Wrath.
Yeah.
Whenever Azor's Wrath, whenever your burst drive fills up and you hit that R2 button to burst, and you see the burst thing explode, he pulls back his fist, and energy starts gathering, that's the oh yeah, shit's about to go down moment. Wow.
And that's more exciting than the actual connection of the punch.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't take one whole minute.
No.
Okay. No. I have been there with BG with the whole 1 minute casting animation. Knights of the Round.
But here's the thing though, not to correct you offhandedly, BG, but a 1 minute casting animation is not anticipation. Anticipation are those moments before the action actually occurs. So even for a 1 minute casting animation, the anticipation will be a couple of seconds of them maybe shining their hand over the orb on their staff or a twinkle in their eye.
Yeah.
That's the anticipation. Right. And that's what you guys got to work on. Got to have those.
Look, you dare to. Knights of the Round. We can get into a discussion on that, Burke.
Jay's correct. RPG Maker, MV, and MZ, as good as they are, do have that problem. You have to program it in. You're going to have to go in and create a plugin. Hopefully, maybe use some kind of an animation sequence that you can do in the battle animations. I know that, again, that takes plugins to do, but the default battle engine doesn't do that. So you're going to want to program in RPG Maker to do that for you because it breathes so much more life. Yeah, KV, Dragon Bones will do that. Right, the Dragon Bones plugin will allow you to create anticipation. Remember Moons of True Magic, Teal?
Yes.
We love that game, and it has anticipations for every single attack.
Mm-hmm.
They all do. They all do.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have chat saying. Referring.
Well, we're just talking about the setting up casting animation tag. Oh yeah, it's BG. BG was saying that we're going to set up a casting animation tag.
Oh, that's something with an RPG Maker because they use their tags to denote certain things for plugins. But yes, yeah, but you can overdo animations, but we're talking about anticipation, and now we're going to move on from anticipation to follow through.
Yeah.
So again, when you're creating your animation for your character's attacks, running, jumping, whatever, you want to have that initial pullback. You know, that, let's get ready, that's your anticipation, and then you do the action, and then you have to have a follow-through. Like, maybe they stumble a little bit from that jump, or maybe when they attack, they kind of slide a little bit. They kind of go, and they slide a little bit, because the sword is really, really heavy.
True.
Those are all important things you need to have. So, all of your battle actions, at the very least, have to have anticipation and follow-through to be well animated. Otherwise, it does. It looks like the stick figure. You walk forward, schmack, schmack, step back. Let's see.
Yeah, Black Rose remembers learning that.
Yes.
Learning about the animation in our art class.
Yeah, for both this workshop right here, this thing right here, for both the workshop and the podcast, we used this. This comes from an old book written by the Disney animators. I forgot what it was called, The 12 Principles of Animation. The name of the book currently escapes me. We actually mentioned it in the podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah, so check that out.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to the next piece right here. Another thing that you're really going to want to look into, and I'm reading from here, is you want to have some kind of a secondary action. So when you do something on your character should also be done. Like, let's say you're... Oh, we have a follow! Cool!
Sweet!
Oh, that's funny. It didn't actually show who followed, but thank you so much for the follow, whoever you are. Ooh!
Ooh!
Okay, so we have to have a window now telling us what happens.
Yeah.
That was a very good secondary action. Whoever it was who followed, our apologies. Oh, Silver Shion. Thank you, Silver Shion.
Silver Shion, thank you.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to need another little thing over here that says...
I need a window to let me know that happened.
Running out of virtual space.
We're running out of space here.
But yeah.
Okay, let's go back to our topic.
Secondary action.
Secondary actions.
Right, secondary action would be like if you have Robin Hood, and Robin Hood attacks, and then the feather on his cap kind of flips a little bit. That's a secondary action. Another part. Yeah. That was a follow. Thank you again for the follow. Okay.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So, secondary action breathes life because it's not just your character moving. Tara Branford's ponytail, if it had moved in Final Fantasy VI, that would be a secondary action.
Right.
A secondary action in Child of Light had a great one, and it was part of the follow through. In Child of Light, whenever the little girl attacked, remember, if she attacked really hard, her crown would flip off. Or whenever she would she would get hit, her crown would flip off, and she'd put it back. A secondary action's an action that's not by the primary piece you're animating; it's by something else. But it adds life.
Yeah, it does.
It adds a very important piece of life. Let's see. Another one is, as I read, here we go. Timing and motion. And squatch and stretch, we can kind of do that. So timing is a good one as well. The more frames you add into your animation, the smoother the animation is going to look, while the more janky it's going to look. And you sometimes want to use janky. You sometimes want to have, instead of 60 frames of animation for something, you want to have it in 30, 20.
Right. Like for example, you're remembering something that happened long ago, a memory sequence, or your character puts in a film from an old reel, and it shows, and it kind of janks and pops and pops up and down, and then it starts showing the whatever's on that old reel.
Exactly. Or another one, if your character's doing an attack that's supposed to be like a flurry of punches, like Ken from Fist of the North Star.
Yes.
And you don't want to do that in full 60 frames per second, so smooth. You want to do it so it's like yeah. I bet I looked ridiculous just now, but you want to do it so that it's that really chopped up, janky motion.
Yeah.
That mimics a blur of attack. So remember, when you're timing your animation, sometimes it's better to go lower FPS than upper FPS.
Sometimes it's better just for the effect.
Sometimes you need exaggerated motions. It's another one. Exaggeration right here in the lower left-hand corner.
Yeah.
Really exaggerated motions can often show a fantastic use of power.
Yeah.
Look at the exaggerated motions of Cloud's Omnislash. That's a great example. Or Lionheart from Final Fantasy VIII. I mean, those are just huge swings of the sword with the light trails all over the place, and the enemy's going pow, poom, pwa. But that exaggeration of motion is showing just how powerful the attack is, how strong it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the others are here as well that are important. Learn how stretching and squashing works for something that's made of rubber or made of a softer material. All of this we discuss in our podcast. But the important part is that these animation techniques you're going to want to use for everything you're animating.
Yeah.
You don't just want to use it in the battle scene, although you definitely want it in an RPG's battle, or an ARPG, or if you're making a driving game, anticipation, getting ready to turn that wheel and then turning that wheel, or you go through a drift and you slide a little bit and then you kind of stop, then you go forward again. You want to employ these animation techniques. They're so important
because it just, your whole point is to draw the player into the action, into your game. And what better technique than to use those animation things?